Hi everyone, before starting the video let me tell you that I will first tell you guys the verses and then I will explain the meaning of those verses, but before moving forward hit the subscribe button. Verse 1. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him. Verse 2. And he began to teach them. He said, verse 3, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Verse 4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Verse 6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Verse 7. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Verse 8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Verse 11. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Verse 12. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Explanation. The Beatitudes, meaning blessings, describe the attitudes and behaviors that are pleasing to God and the characteristics of those who belong to his kingdom. Jesus flips worldly values upside down, saying that those who are humble, meek, poor in spirit, and persecuted are blessed, even though they may seem weak in the eyes of the world. These qualities reflect a heart aligned with God's will. Verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled by men. Verse 14. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Verse 15. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. Verse 16. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Explanation. Jesus calls his followers the salt of the earth and the light of the world. Salt preserves and enhances flavor, while light dispels darkness. Christians are to influence the world positively by living out God's truth and reflecting his goodness to others. Verse 17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Verse 18. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Verse 19. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Verse 20. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Explanation. Jesus didn't come to abolish the law of Moses, but to fulfill it. He shows that God's commandments are still relevant, but he calls us to a deeper righteousness than just following rules. The Pharisees and teachers of the law were focused on outward actions, but Jesus calls for an inner transformation. Verse 21. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. Verse 22. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who insults a brother or sister is answerable to the court, and anyone who says, You fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Verse 23. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, verse 24, leave your gift there in front of the altar, first go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Verse 25. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Verse 26. Truly I tell you, You will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Explanation: Jesus teaches that murder isn't just about physically killing someone. Anger, insults, and hatred are just as damaging. Reconciliation is vital. If you are in conflict with someone, Jesus emphasizes the importance of resolving issues quickly and seeking peace. Verse 27, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Verse 28. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Verse 29, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Verse 30, and if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Explanation: Jesus goes beyond the physical act of adultery and addresses the heart, teaching that lustful thoughts are sinful. He emphasizes the importance of purity and warns that even desires can lead to spiritual harm. The extreme language about removing body parts illustrates how seriously we should take sin. Verse 31, it has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. Verse 32. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Explanation: Jesus teaches that divorce is permissible only in cases of sexual immorality. He highlights that marriage is sacred and should not be broken easily. The act of divorce and remarriage can lead to adultery, emphasizing the seriousness of marital commitment. Verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the oaths you have made. Verse 34. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne. Verse 35. Or by the earth, for it is his footstool. Or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Verse 36, and do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Verse 37, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Explanation: Jesus teaches that we should be people of integrity, meaning that our yes should be yes and our no should be no. Oaths or promises should not be necessary if we are truthful in our everyday speech. Swearing oaths implies we need to convince others of our honesty, but God calls us to be consistently trustworthy. Verse 38, you have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. Verse 39, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. Verse 40, and if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Verse 41, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Verse 42, give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Explanation: Jesus challenges the principle of retaliation, eye for eye, teaching instead that we should respond to evil with love. He encourages non-violent responses and turning the other cheek. This radical teaching emphasizes grace, forgiveness, and letting go of the need for personal vengeance. Verse 43, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Verse 44, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Verse 45, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Verse 46. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? Verse 47. And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Verse 48. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Explanation: Jesus commands his followers to love their enemies and pray for those who persecute them. This love reflects God's character as he shows kindness to both the righteous and the unrighteous. Jesus calls his disciples to a higher standard than the world, loving beyond the comfort of friendships and into the realm of enemies. Now how we can use these verses in our daily life. In conflicts, aim to be a peacemaker. Whether in family arguments or at work, try to mediate, find common ground, and resolve conflicts peacefully. When facing challenges, remember that God promises comfort to those who mourn or are persecuted for his sake. Be someone who adds value to the people around you. At work, home, or in your community, make sure your actions reflect kindness, wisdom, and integrity. When faced with negative situations or toxic environments, let your positivity and love for others shine through. Stand up for what's right even when it's hard. Strive to do what is right, not because of external rules, but because of an inner desire to honor God. Your actions should reflect the purity of your heart. Live in such a way that your life is guided by love, not just by rules. Avoid going through the motions and focus on true transformation.